Take it away, Rebecca.
All right. Yes, my name is Roberto Rojas. I work for Diagrid, and I'm going to be presenting a proposal for Dapr error handling and a classification of error codes. So I guess the first thing is starting with the problem. As we know, sometimes in Dapr we run into issues, and sometimes it's difficult to figure out where the error came from and a level of detail or what the problem is and things like that. So um, so there's no structure, to some consistency or details of the actual error for the different levels and different sections of execution. Could be in it could be in runtime components or the SDK. So there's different type of errors that could occur. Anything from the actual component that it's needed or the external system that needs to be communicated with or anything like that. So basically, what I'm proposing is something that I came across. It's the it's a GRPC rich model. So it is it is it's already implemented inside of GRPC, and basically what it does, it follows something that Google came up with, where they have already inside of the GRPC, they have protobuffer structures defined that can give us a level of structure and credit information on the problem that has occurred. Let me show you the first level of the structure. So these two links provide more information about what I mentioned, the gRPC Richard model, and it's basically composed on several structures. One of them is a message called status that has a code, and I'll show you the list of codes that come out of the box. And a message, and this is, you could be anything that whoever's reporting the error, whatever component is reporting the error, can populate. And then there's a list of details. And this list of details is what gives you the flexibility to add more information of the actual error. So usually the structure of one of them, there's a list of them, and I'll show them in a second. So the structure of one of them is the error info, and then this one has a string reason that we could use in our case for Dapr to indicate where where in the different modules the error occurred. And I'll show, I have a demo that will show this in action. The domain that could be related to the reason itself, and a map of strings to string values. So in here you can provide, or the component can provide more information to the caller. So the caller needs to do a retry or whatever else it wants to do. So this is an example coming directly from the Google API. So if you were to call the Google API, you get a 400. So I'll show you a partial list, but there's a complete list of the mappings between gRPC and HTTP in the case of the Google API. So as you can see in here, there was a message that was provided, a status. In this case, they decided to populate it with some information. We can have this be, or actually, this is going to be what's coming out of the component or the section that provided the error itself, and then the level of details. And in here, we could have a list of different type of errors. So in this case, it's using the error info, and there are some other ones. But in the error info, we have the reason, the domain, and the metadata. Here's a partial list that I mentioned before. The entire list, it's here. Oh, 1 second. Okay, the entire list that comes out of the box is coming from this proto that has an enum where you have different values that are coming out of the box. there's the possibility that for Go, we could append to this list. So basically, what that means is this number could be altered, not altered, but we can add our own numbers if we needed to. What I'm suggesting instead is for us to use the error info at least with a reason. And, um, and basically what I'm proposing is like a classification of those error of those reasons. So at the moment I came up with this set of, I guess, grouping. One that would be based on the init. So when we do that Dapr init, it would try to cover like the different reasons for why the init failed. In the case of runtime, so when things are in the runtime itself that fail, this these values can be used. And in the case of each component, at least in the grouping of the components. So if it's a pub sub, if it's a state store binding and the like. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. So in this situation, and this is part of the demo that I have, what I did is I caused a failure on Redis. So basically the Redis component that is trying to talk to it is the one that is going to populate both the error info and this error, and of course this other part. So I'll show you the code that kind of does something like that. So in this example, in the example itself, I'm showing the imports that would be used in in different places, and of course this could be done in many ways when it comes to the code, the Dapr code itself. But basically, this is just I guess, the gist of what you would need to use. You need to do this certain imports. You need to create the status, and then here's where you provide the first code. That would be this code in here. And then after that, you provide more information. In this case, it's using, I'm using the messages that came from the actual system. And this is just me adding it as part of the demo. The key and some other information. So basically, in here, we can provide as much information as we want to show in here in the message. The error info is what's going to come as part of the details. So, so in this case, I'm saying, well, I mean, if this was trapped at the GRPC level and the component that was called did not provide anything, then this level could provide some information. So as we go from, let's say, the entry point being like GRPC and then GRPC calling a component, and then the component trying to call Redis and it couldn't. So if the component itself is not already following this standard, the GRPC, which is what I'm proposing, the GRPC and HTTP and CLI to be the first ones to start following it, so that we can start from the higher level all the way to a more detailed or granular level. We could also provide our own custom info, and how we would go about doing that is we would create our own proto that provides the information that we want. So here's the same example as I had before, but this time it's being populated as well with our custom, I guess, error info, if you will. But we could call this anything we want. We could provide as many values or anything that we need. We have to be careful about how much information we provide, because most of this information in the case of gRPC is coming in the gRPC headers, and there's a limit of how much information should come back. So at least for this solution, the pros are like the gRPC implementations, at least for Go and some other languages that we use SDKs for, already provide this. So we don't have to do any changes on the signatures, other than when we are returning the error. Now, the endpoint that will receive that error will have a structured error instead of the error that it's getting right now. So if there's a piece of code that relies on the way that that the error codes or whatever error string we're sending right now, we need to change so that it will receive something more structured. So when there's a convention that is done with how the like what values we're going to send in different scenarios, then now the code would rely on something that they can use programmatically. So again, the changes should not be as much. But again, I haven't gone through the entire Dapr ecosystem to say but based on the demo that the POC that I did, I can see that it's something that was relatively straightforward to do. And once again, there's programmatic values to that. Of course, the cons are we're going to have a dependency of the GRPC rich model in some places that probably we don't have it. I'm guessing on the HTTP side, mainly because some of those parts may not already include some of this imports. But if they do, then we don't have to do anything else beyond that. So far, the only one that I have that I found that does not provide the implementation is the C#.NET. So as we know, we're using the GRPC.NET module or Nugget, whatever it's called. But I found that Google already provides like an extension to that. So if we decide to move forward with this, we could make the changes in the .NET SDK to accommodate so that now it will have support for things like the error info and resource info. Unfortunately, since most of those SDKs provide enums, and they don't have the flexibility that Go has when it comes to enums. I mean, Go does not provide necessarily enums, but it provides, I guess, structures that give you the enum-like behavior. So it makes it easier for us to, on the Dapr or the Go side, to add new values. But on the other ones, we're kind of stuck with whatever is provided out of the box, which is the list that I mentioned before in one of the links. So like I said, I have a POC, and these are the typical imports. I put the POC in the various repos, but all the repos are inside of my repo, and they're under this branch error codes POC. All right, so let me show let me go through the POC right now. Can you guys see this? Anybody?
Yep, we can see it. Make it a tiny bit bigger.
Great. Oh, okay. Okay, great. Yeah, the code, like I said, it's on my repo. So if people want to go into details on the code, we can go that. But I can show some part of this now. So let me go to a sheet that I have. So the first demo that I'm gonna show is from the command line. I'm gonna perform a curl get into Dapr, and this is going to ask for a value from the state store, in this case, the Redis one. So let me just run that. So oops, let me minimize this. Okay, here, everything else is running. Okay, great. So what am I doing here? I'm making sure that Redis is running the container itself, and then I'm running Dapr by itself. There's no application attached to it, and it's going. The demo is going to use the state store invocation. So we have Dapr running, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 2 executions in one command line just to make it easier, but it could be done separately. So the first one is going to do a get on a value that I have already stored. Then it's going to stop Redis, and then it's going to perform that get one more time so that we can see the error that we get. All right. So the first one is the successful get. This value is an output from when we stop Redis. And the third one is the actual error. So as you can see, it's the same. type of structure that we get. Value 14 means unavailable, but that was decided. So if I can show the code that caused this, okay. I don't know if you can see this. Let me just amplify it a little bit. But again, the code is in my repo, so you can go through it in detail. So the first thing that I'm doing in here is checking if the error that is coming all the way from whatever execution this performed is of the type of error status, then that's what I'm going to be using. Meaning, if one of the components down the pipe generated a status error, then I can use that one. Instead, if it's just a standard error, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my own wrapping of the error. So it starts off with creating an error info, populating that with whatever information we want. Then after that, we create the actual status error. That's the one that's going to be on the outer side. And then it populates with the details. It populates in this case, it populates the error info inside of the details of the status. So then once it's all that's done, then I pass it down to, in this case, the serializer. And what I did in here is I have this extension to the code that all it's going to do is just serialize that so that you can see it in here. But in any event, the status error could be, it's an object. It could be populated. It could be used in so many ways to programmatically react to the error, if you will. So whatever's catching this could use it. That's one. The next one, let me stop. Dapr. So the next demo, it's going to actually I'm going to follow the same demo, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to change Redis so that instead of returning a standard error, it will return a more meaningful error. This is the Redis component of the state store. Before it was just running returning a standard error, but this time it's going to return a better, a more detailed version of it. So what I have in here is it's code that it just makes it easier to come up with the actual error info and custom errors and all that good stuff. But it's just one way of doing it. So many other ways that we could do that. Let me run a build on this. So we can see the new error, or actually the error populated with greater detail than it was before. So in here, I run, oops, let me just get running. Okay, so that brings back up. And now we run the same scenario, a successful one, stop Redis, and then an error scenario. Okay, so once again, that's the successful one. This is stopping Redis, and now this is the one that provides more detail. So all this information is coming directly from the Redis state component. And as you can see, we can populate more information, error info, resources, another type of detail that could be done. And here's our custom one. And basically what I did is I added the proto that I showed on my slide, if you will, with some similar information as the error info. But this could be anything that we decide. So that's that one. The other demo that I have is, okay. So next demo, it's going to execute, again, we're going to run Dapr, right? So Dapr is running, but this time we're going to use the CLI to invoke or to try to find an application function that doesn't exist, an application method that doesn't exist. So, so I made some changes as well so that it will populate the error. So once again, I'm invoking the same app that I have, and I'm calling a method that doesn't exist. And the same idea. In this case, it's being trapped at the HTTP level, and I decided to provide some more information, including our custom one. All right. Another demo that I have, it's coming from the SDK. Right, so let me stop. Oops. Okay. What did I do? Great. All right. Okay. Okay. Hopefully that's looking better. For some reason, this window's messed up a little bit. But anyway, so now I'm in the SDK, and I'm inside of one of the examples of the SDK, and this one is it's again using the state stored Redis, and in this scenario, what I'm causing the same error, but this time it's going to come from the component to the GRPC, and then it's going to come down to the SDK, and then the SDK is going to use whatever the value is. So once again, I'm starting Redis, and then in 5 seconds, I'm going to stop it, and then I'm running I'm running Dapr with this application. So the application, it's going to wait for a few seconds, for Redis to come down, and then once it does that, it will try to execute the same, getting the state that it was trying to get. So as you can see in here, it's the same type of information that we're getting. The only difference is we have it on the other side of the SDK. So at least this proves that the information can come from the component, go through Dapr, and then go on the other side of the SDK and could be used. That's it. The other demos that I have are quite similar to this one. So so that's it. That's what I'm proposing. Let me go back here. There is, so in the POC, I have this other links to the code changes that I made. Now, for a solution B, I don't have a solution B because per se, because this would mean, hey, we're gonna have to come up with our own error structure, and then we have to like agree on it and make some of the changes or whatever changes are needed across to kind of populate and use that error structure. I believe Makonnen created an issue that goes through that. Just give me a second because this window is on the way. So in here, he's proposing something similar to what I mentioned, where we create our own structure and then we have to go through the code. So that could be plan your solution B, but I haven't gone through that in detail to know if it, if it's what we want or not. So any questions? I see some questions on the chat.
Yeah, I'd go through and read the questions.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, well, why don't you start at the top and go and read through them all? So the first question is, I thought last time we decided we were going with non-numeric errors. Well, Alessandro, maybe you can talk to some of these when you posted them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that last time. Like, it sounded like there was consensus that we were not using numeric errors, or maybe I just misunderstood.
Okay, so I guess maybe we should talk with this example, right? So this error, this number that comes here, is for us to have it's the status error. So we can't, if we go the route of using this structure, which is the outer object, right? Or the outer JSON, if you will, or message. It already comes with a number. Now, that number is a general number, right? So usually this number would map to either a gRPC level or HTTP level number, right? Now, the inner object, and this is one of them. There are many of them, and I can show them in one of the protos. Just a sec. Here, this is the status codes. Anyway, so these are the numbers that show the status codes, and they're already fixed, and it's coming directly from the gRPC, protos. So the status will always have this set of numbers. In the case of Go, we can change the number if you want. Not change it, we can add new numbers. But that's only in the case of Go. Now, okay. So the inner objects, the objects that come inside here in the details, the inner objects, out of the box, there's an error info, there's an error retry info debug, quota. That there's several of them that already are part of the protos that are part of the implementations. So we could use them because a lot of them have information similar to the one that we maybe want to provide. But as I mentioned, we could have our own structure, which is what I'm doing in here. Now, the limitation for us to use this and to provide a number that is not one of the lists that I showed is it comes from the SDKs, starting from the .NET one, because the implementation has two things. One of them, it doesn't provide the full access to this inner objects, at least the default, which is called the gRPC rich model. That the current version of the gRPC for .NET does not provide it out of the box, but Google provided its own nugget that does provide that. It provides the same objects that we get from the Go, the C++, the Java, or some of the other languages. But it doesn't provide you with the ability to extend, meaning provide your own objects, at least from what I saw. It's somebody, from the .NET can help me with this and look into that. That would be great. I mean, we can jump on a call and look into that and see if we can do something around that. But those are the only limitations that I see for this. So we're not going to be able, if our problem is this number, this should be the number that we should provide, or actually the reason that we should provide to the other end. Meaning, let's say that from the CLI, we got an error and it came with this information. The error info is what's needed, and then the reason would be one of the classifications that I'm providing in here.
Yeah, so the code is the HTTP status code, right, or gRPC, so that's a standard?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's okay. What I have a problem with is the reason having a number at the end.
The reason having a number at the end. Oh,
yeah, like Dapr component sub.
Oh, yeah. When I was talking to Arthur about this, we see this as a version, so that in the case that we were to provide, it's inside of the CLI. If you only have one without a number, then you're stuck with it. Then you're gonna have to come up with Dapr in its CLI. What? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
So-
can we like Dapr init CLI flag missing or something? Because I think I wrote it in the chat, but what is going to happen if you have a numeric code is that you have to maintain an index somewhere, which means that you have to maintain it probably in our docs. And we have a very hard time already making sure that our components reference are in sync with the docs. I can imagine this being very hellish to maintain in sync. Just like things are going to diverge over time. And you do have to have this in the docs, because when people see an error code, the first thing they do is they Google it.
Yeah, that's the idea. That is exactly the idea. The idea is so that this would be in the docs or somewhere in the docs.
It sounds amazing until you actually try to make it work in an open source project, as we have experience with the components right now.
Yeah. Well, I guess the way I see it is, if we don't do this, then what are we going to provide? Because the useful part,
like a descriptive error, like Dapr CLI, Dapr init CLI argument missing, or Dapr init CLI, whatever you want.
Yeah, but that value still has to go to the docs anyway, right?
At least it's more descriptive, so you might not even need to put it in. As long as you combine it with a human readable error, it's a little bit more descriptive. The other problem then is conflicts, that when you have two people working on something at the same time, like you and I are both working on a PR, we both define error with like number 2, and then the reviewers don't notice it because it's very hard to notice these kind of things, and so they get merged, and then we have two situations that return the same error code, so then it becomes another problem there too.
Okay. So I guess we have to work on the classification more. Is that what we're getting?
That's my feedback. My feedback is that this is amazing in practice, but the problem is the human problem here, and it's going to be hard to keep this tidy over time.
Okay. So once again, it sounds to me that what we have to do is work on the classification and not necessarily the structure of the error, because like I said before, this could be anything. It's a string, right? But we want to make sure that it is one of those strings that it's known not to change, because we're going to run into situations where if we provide this with some other person decided to change the value or put whatever in there, it's going to break code. So that's why I'm proposing this to be a fixed value, whatever that is. You know what I mean?
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm just advocating for that to be descriptive rather than containing an error. Yeah.
Okay. I see. So like I said, it seems to me that we have to go into details of more descriptive, what kind of levels would we want. I don't know if I'm necessarily covering the majority of the scenarios in here, because I started looking at it from, oh yeah, we're in it, performing in it. This should cover the internals of Dapr, either talking the CLI, self-hosted either, or communication between the two sides, if you have two Dapr components, and then, or two Dapr instances running, and then the components themselves. But all right, yeah, I guess I can see if I can come up with a better description or reason, if you will. The other values, like things like the domain, and in my case, I like that because it could be one of those things that it could be at the actual component itself. So it's easier to trace down to, oh, okay, what component failed, or if it's within Dapr, like what section failed. But yeah, that's what I have so far. I mean, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
The domains are cool. I think like other people in the chat are saying, just make the error reasons descriptive. And also I added in the chat on the metadata, we have to be careful what we put out. for example, a key from a state store can contain PII, so we should not include that in an error.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Again, this is just arbitrary on my part. Like
For sure. But I
shows it, but I agree with you. Being
Yeah.
so.
Just wanted to put it out there just so we know from the get-go. Like it could be a social security number, for example. So we need to be careful.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. So okay. So it sounds to me that I mean, it sounds that this is not only going to be code changes, but also review every time a review is done to make sure that some of these things are taken care of. You know, one of the things that I was trying to do as well was try to come up with a mini framework so it makes it easier for whatever section of the code needs to generate this, so that things that are either repetitive or could cause problems could be checked. You know, so if we were to use a framework, in the framework we can have like I don't know, a blacklist, if you will, of things that should not go into the metadata, where we check it's like, hey, you know, we have a list of keys that they're provided and are going to become an error. The unfortunate part is, well, I guess it could be checked maybe out of certification, but I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud now. But yeah, I guess review is definitely going to be something that is going to have to make sure that people are not doing the wrong thing in here. You know, those are great. You know, pointing out great points. I see some of these points are, well, we're going to have those issues even if we come up with our own structure, right? Like we have to make sure that people don't put whatever they feel like as part of the output. Yeah, that's what I have so far. Any other questions? I see that there's more questions there, but okay. Make sure they integrate with universal APIs. What is that again? Please make sure that this is integrated with universal API.
Yeah, we can take that offline. It's more about
Oh,
implementation.
okay. Okay, cool.
When you show the returning an error, and then if it's a GRPC error, converting it, something very similar to that is already happening when you look at the universal API. We can take that offline.
Yeah, it would be like awesome if we can like grab some of these things. If people don't feel like talking about them right now, maybe we can grab this and put it as part of this in here, so that, you know, as comments of the proposal, because that's going to make it even easier for me to like go back later and whenever I have either internal conversations or in conversation with other folks. Well, that's all I have for now. Any other questions?
Nope, this was, let me get myself off mute. No, this was good.
Okay. Hopefully we can get some sort of consensus on the reason, and hopefully this is going to be useful, at least for the programmatic and consistent way of dealing with errors.
I guess, have you got what you need, in a sense? Have you got enough feedback that you can make progress on this? Even if we kind of, I guess the question is it doesn't have to finish in 1.11 or of all the error codes, or maybe get that and it starts in 1.11 and there's still time to change in 1.12. Is that what you would like to see?
Yeah, that's what we were hoping. This is going to take some time, because if I was thinking in starting at the higher level, so that this one would trap, like be a catch all type of thing, and then we provide like I don't know, at that level we provide some sort of structure, like introducing the structure, right? So that as people start working on some of the components, they just follow that same structure, if you will. But then, you know, going through everywhere, and Dapr is going to take a while. Going through all the SDKs is going to take a while. So,
Okay.
yeah. So the classifications, if anyone has a chance to go back and look at my repo, once again, let me I guess we'll provide. Well, the link is inside of the issue for this. So whatever comments, if you think about something else later on, please add it as a comment, so that it would definitely help me in figuring out like something. And then once I have something else, I guess we'll have one more call. At least from the code changes, they shouldn't be that difficult at the beginning. It's going to be tedious, but the code changes should not be too difficult. That's what I'm hoping. Knock on wood.
Okay. All right. So with that, shall I finish the call?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? No. All right. All right. Then,
Thank you very much, Roberto. Very useful. Good work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks.
this was excellent to see. So continue posting things inside the issue for comments that you have inside there.
Yeah.
You'll take your proposal and link it, or you've linked it into the comments already of the actual issue. And then I'll post this video up later today, and you can attach the video into the proposal link as well, so people can watch that as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone.